No, Shoma. I think he's telling you should brush your teeth, especially after an episode like this. Continuing right from where he left off last week, Hanto returned to his mentor's office to report in, but of course, as we saw even through the episode recap, he had been captured. And he soon discovered this fact after finding his bag and camera. Well, okay, so it's obvious what's gonna happen here. Hanto's gonna spend the episode rescuing his mentor, as the Grand Utes are gonna use him as a hostage, so he'll have to become like a
Shisho.
God.
Yeah, do you even need the flashback to the last episode to realize the dude's dead? Like, okay, I won't pretend like he was that much of a character. I mean, he was a nice guy and everything, and he did give some comforting words to Hanto, which in hindsight were pretty obvious little death flags, but still, it's a little hard to feel bad just for the fact that this person died. That said, the effect it had on Hanto is a different story altogether, as he desperately tried to get Suga to save him, even though he probably already knew the answer was no. Want some chocolates? I mean, you're gonna have a lot by the end of this episode and everything, so maybe you don't really need it, and I'll show myself out. Like, seriously, I'm not sure if this actor went full method, or they just used some eye drops, but either way, give him full points for letting his eyes go full red like that. Anyway, understandably, he was depressed over the fact that the Grand Utes had seemingly taken away two important people in his life, and his grandmother had also passed away from some unrelated reasons because misery loves company apparently. So Suga, rather conveniently, offered him a chance at revenge with a new driver he had created. I say that with a suspicious tone because, as one of the commenters from last week pointed out, he does appear in the opening right after a sequence with the Stolmach family, and as some dark candy melts away, hinting that he might have at least some connections with them. This is further hinted at later in the episode when Naival's stomach, the brainy brother because he has glasses and everything, hinted that he had his own interests in both his little brother's stomach belt and maybe one made by humans, as, yeah, another commenter pointed out that actually was his agent that hired the hat guy and not the twins. The Stolmach family, if you ever want to see siblings more dysfunctional than the Sonozakis. Either one, really. Meanwhile, and to get our minds off of all that depressing stuff, Shoma told his little buddies to patrol the town for any Grand Utes, which they were kind of already doing, but I guess he wanted to make sure they knew to do that. However, as a result, a few ended up being seen by Sachika. Shh! Sachika, you're saying the quiet part out loud. But yeah, she didn't catch on, but did end up being the one who named them the Gochujos, which I didn't even realize they hadn't even been named yet. Anyway, Shoma also wisely decided to work with his Grunkle Dente, who could work with him as, ironically, a less evil version of Suga, considering this was the guy who created the decompression process. On that note, Suga revealed then, or to use his artificial Gavv driver, Hanto would still need the necessary internals to use it.
Win-win だと思うけど
Well, when you put it like that, it can't be all that bad.
それじゃ張り切って参りましょう
You know, for kids! Seriously, I'm going to need a new jaw from how many times this episode made me drop it. But yeah, before he committed to the just barely PG surgery, Hanto did have to think it over, and this was a decent little scene, as not only were we reminded of how much his life sucks so far, but we got a little more development for his relationship with his mentor, which, yeah, is a little cheesy, especially after the guy's already gone, but again, Hanto's actor, Yusuke Hino, really helped to sell it. Later, the Gochujos managed to track down the Top Hat Grand Ute, who of course posed as a street magician, who was about to pull off his disappearing act that thankfully was ruined by Shoma. Oh, I don't know, maybe save your girlfriend's life there, dude. I wonder if brain cells are an important ingredient in the dark treats. He fought the fungal man and tried to make quick work of him, but he probably should have stuck with the more traditional flying sidekick rather than an axe kick against a dude who had a very slimy shroom for a head. Of course, this is also meant to let Hanto have his revenge after he had successfully gotten his surgery, you know, aside from that little bit of him dying on the table.
あれあと2針だったのに持たなかった
Dude, who did you get your medical degree from?
Hi, everybody!
But But it worked, and he even provided him with a stolen chocolate gochizo. And I gotta say, I really like this transformation, as one, it reminds me of Jack Revice, the best transformation from that season, with the chocolate looking like an evil sludge to suggest a deal with the devil that Hanto likely made with Suga. And this transitional stage with the foil wrappers was quite clever. That said, I'm not totally sold on Valen's design just yet at least. First of all, I think the colors are just a little too separated. Like, I get that he has both white and probably milk chocolate all over him, but compare him with Gavv, who we can see his colors blend in at the edges, giving his outfit a bit more of a dynamic flowing feel to it. And probably most damningly, I think the red wrappers that have chocolate written on them are really kind of throwing me off. That said, I do like that his buckle is an unwrapped chocolate bar with wrappers on the left and right. It's a clever and good usage of that space since we've gotten a DN situation where the gun is the henshin device and not the belt, which makes sense in this show's context. All of that aside though, he still had a pretty intense and awesome debut fight. Like, obviously, he wasn't fully recovered as his post-surgery scars were still very fresh, and yet driven by his intense desire to seek justice for his mentor, Hanto fought through it and just had one of the most brutal fights ever. Like, I think what really sold it was how both combatants were just not ready for any sort of fight. The Grand Newt wasn't an entertainer and not a fighter, so he just used cheap tricks to try and run away, while Hanto was handicapped by his scars, so their fight was mostly them destroying a bunch of haymakers, which was actually pretty awesome to see, like watching an old ECW match, you know, other than the involvement of a gun. That's more Michinoku Pro, really. Anyway, he defeated him with the power of molten milk balls. Okay, that's different. And with that, the episode ended with Suga stealing a few more chocolates for the road, and Four Eyes watching possibly his own machinations at work. This was a hell of an episode in pretty much every way possible. First and foremost, there was a lot of legit shocking moments, which, whether or not they were totally earned, there's no arguing they were shocking nonetheless, and Hanto just had an awesome rider debut. Most of all, I do like how they seem to be building up him and Shoma as two riders going down very different paths. The obvious similarity between our two main riders was the fact that both went through some sort of surgery. The differences, of course, were why they did and the severity of each. In Shoma's case, it came from a genuine place of love from both his father and uncle wanting to protect him, and really, it was just an expert doctor enhancing an organ they always had. Meanwhile, in Hanto's case, it was being done by an uncaring quack who was encouraging him to indulge in his thirst for vengeance by implanting him with an organ that I wouldn't be surprised if it somehow ended up disintegrating him later or something. In that sense, Hanto actually represents the more traditional creation of a Showa rider, with it being done by a likely nefarious force, and leading to the guy wanting revenge as a result. Thus, this will likely lead to an interesting little conflict between the two riders, which they seem to be hinting at. Like, maybe there will come a point where Shoma does find a Grand Newt who's willing to go cold turkey on the dark treats, but Hanto's prejudice against them will lead him to shoot first and ask questions later. They'll be intriguing to see, especially with hints that Naival has his hands in on this as well. Combine that with some legit good drama, coming mostly from the strong performances of Hanto's actor that really sold how much pain this poor character was going through, and overall, this is just another strong and emotional episode. Both writers are going down at least somewhat heroic paths, but for one, it might be lined with some very dark chocolate. If you haven't seen them yet, like I know a lot of you haven't, maybe go check out some of the new anime that we're reviewing for the season. For this season, we decided to look at some more magical girl-esque anime, like one pretty much is, but the other is a little more on the shonen side. Just go watch the reviews for Aqua Trip and Magi Lumiere if you want to see what I mean. And until next time though, farewell for now my friends, and yeah, y'all knew he was coming.